My name is Rebecca Miller, and for the longest time I thought my family life was stable. My husband, Daniel, and I had been married for over 20 years. We had built a life together that from the outside looked almost perfect. A modest home in a quiet neighborhood, steady jobs, and our only child, Ethan, who had just turned 21 and was studying fine arts at a nearby university. Ethan had always been passionate about art. Ever since he was a little boy, I would find him sketching on napkins, on the backs of homework assignments, even on the margins of his school books. While most children eventually outgrew their hobbies, Ethan's interest only grew stronger. By the time he was in high school, he was already entering competitions, filling our home with canvases, and impressing his teachers with his natural talent. When he was accepted into the art program at his university, Daniel and I were proud, though Daniel sometimes dismissed Ethan's dream of becoming a professional artist as unrealistic. Our lives were moving along in predictable rhythms. Daniel worked long hours in finance, often coming home exhausted and distant. I worked part-time at a local library, which allowed me to keep our home in order while still maintaining some independence. I had grown used to the loneliness in my marriage, though I didn't always admit it to myself. Daniel and I hadn't truly connected in years. Conversations were short and mechanical, affection rare, and intimacy practically non-existent. I kept convincing myself this was normal after so many years together, that love changes shape over time, but deep down I missed the warmth we once had. One afternoon, as I was preparing dinner, Ethan came into the kitchen holding his sketchbook. His dark brown hair was messy, his hands covered in charcoal smudges. "Mom," he said with a hint of nervousness, "I have a big assignment coming up. It's for my figure drawing class, and I was wondering, would you consider helping me with it?" I looked up from chopping vegetables. "Helping you? How?" He shifted on his feet, clearly unsure how to phrase it. "Well, we're supposed to work with live models. Most students hire someone or ask friends, but I don't really know anyone who would be comfortable with it. I thought maybe you could sit for me. Just, in regular clothes. I need someone who can hold still and be patient." I laughed lightly, relieved. For a moment, I thought he was going to ask something impossible. "Of course I can do that. If it helps you, I'd be happy to." His face lit up with gratitude. "Really? That would mean a lot to me. You've always been the one who supported my art the most." And just like that, I found myself agreeing to something I thought was simple, harmless, and even fun. I didn't know at the time how deeply this choice would change the course of my life. The first session was easy enough. Ethan set up his easel in the living room, moved some furniture around, and asked me to sit in a chair near the window where the natural light poured in. I sat there, hands folded in my lap, as he sketched in silence. It felt strange at first, being observed so closely but also flattering. My own son was looking at me with an artist's eye, not just as his mother. There was something respectful, almost reverent, in the way he concentrated. As the days went by, Ethan asked me to model for him more often. Sometimes I'd sit reading a book, other times I'd stand near the window, pretending to look outside. He experimented with different lighting, different angles. He never once made me feel uncomfortable. If anything, I felt more alive than I had in years. For the first time in a long while, someone was really seeing me, not as a tired wife or aging woman, but as someone worth capturing on paper. Daniel, however, barely noticed. He came home late most nights, usually heading straight for the shower and then bed. When he did notice Ethan's sketches of me pinned on the wall, he only made a passing comment. "That's nice, I guess." His disinterest stung, but it was nothing new. One evening, after a particularly long modeling session, Ethan showed me a finished charcoal drawing. I gasped when I saw it. He had drawn me sitting in profile, my face lit by sunlight streaming through the window. The details were breathtaking. The softness of my hair, the fine lines on my face, the quiet strength in my posture. It was me, but more beautiful than I ever thought I could look. "Ethan," I whispered, touched beyond words, "this is incredible." He looked proud, almost shy. "I just wanted to show you the way I see you." That sentence struck me deeply. The way he saw me. Someone appreciated me again. Someone noticed me. Over the following weeks, the The sessions grew longer, and our conversations grew deeper. Ethan would tell me about his classes, his fears about the future, his dreams of traveling to Europe to study the great masters. I listened, offering advice when I could, but more than anything, I was just grateful for the connection. In return, he asked about me, about my childhood, my regrets, even my feelings about my marriage. No one had asked me those things in years. It was during one of these talks that something inside me cracked. I admitted out loud, for the first time, that I felt invisible in my own home. That Daniel had stopped caring a long time ago. I cried as I spoke, ashamed of my own weakness, but Ethan listened without judgment. He reached out, holding my hand gently, telling me I deserved to be seen and valued. That simple act of comfort awakened emotions I didn't expect. I began to feel a closeness to him that went beyond mother and son, a dangerous intimacy I didn't know how to name. I tried to push it down, to remind myself of boundaries, but the more time we spent together, the more difficult it became. The turning point came one quiet Sunday afternoon. Daniel had left for yet another business trip, though by then I suspected his trips involved more than just work. Ethan asked me to pose in the garden, the late autumn light glowing golden around us. I wore a simple dress, nothing revealing, but as I stood there, I could feel his eyes on me with an intensity that made my heart race. When he showed me the sketch afterward, my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't just a drawing of me. It was almost a confession of how he saw me, not just as his mother, but as a woman. I felt guilty. I felt exhilarated. I felt alive in ways I hadn't in decades. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the warmth in Ethan's eyes, the tenderness in his touch when he handed me the drawing. The line between right and wrong was blurring, and I didn't know how to stop it. Weeks passed, and the sessions continued. My heart ached with conflict every time I sat for him. I knew this was dangerous, that I was betraying Daniel, but at the same time, Daniel had betrayed me long ago with his neglect, perhaps even with affairs of his own. I justified my feelings by telling myself that what Ethan and I shared was not physical, but emotional. But deep down, I knew I was already crossing a boundary that could never be uncrossed. The final breaking point came when Ethan's professor visited our home to see his portfolio. She praised his work, especially the drawings of me. "These are stunning," she said. "There's so much emotion in them. Whoever your model is, you clearly share a strong bond." Her words made my stomach twist. She could see it too, the connection that had grown between us. It wasn't just in my head. After she left, Ethan turned to